So, welcome back to the Web3 Insights Podcast, where we dive into projects redefining what's possible in blockchain. Today, I'm joined by Alex Blackwood, who is the CEO and co-founder of Mogul, which is a platform that's making real estate investing simpler, smarter, and more secure through blockchain technology. From minting real-world properties as on-chain assets to providing secure wallet-based investment rails, Mogul is building a more open, transparent path to wealth through real estate. Alex, thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Alex, for those who might be unfamiliar, can you give us the backstory? What is Mogul? Of course, what problem are you solving in the real estate investment space? Am I pronouncing it right as well, by the way?
Yeah, Mogul. So the website itself is mogul.club. Obviously, a unique domain there. But yeah, I'm happy to give kind of a background context as to the origin story. I'll keep it high level, and then we can dive in from there.
Awesome.
So background on us, myself and co-founder, we were both at Goldman Sachs in their real estate private equity group. I had done a stint in investment banking even prior to it, but really came about the idea because real estate is obviously too time and capital intensive to invest in outside of your day job. You obviously need to make it your full-time job. And so basically bought my first property out of Dallas, said, this is ridiculous. How many people are sticking their hands out at the end of the transaction, how long it took me to get this transaction. And I was fortunate enough to have the time to do so. However, realized quickly as I was starting my new job in their real estate private equity group that I wouldn't have that time. And so I basically conceptualized this idea of how can I invest in real estate without the time or capital necessary? I was looking around at a few different platforms out there, didn't really see any that matched the return criteria that we were getting at Goldman. And so basically came up with a structure that I thought would give you better returns and unlock the efficiencies at scale and pass along higher returns. So the average other platforms out there are averaging like a 4% IRR and across the board or even net negative returns. We average an 18.8% average IRR. So an annual return of 18.8% when inclusive of appreciation and rental income. So basically that was kind of the inception. I met my co-founder out of Dallas. He had grown Goldman's single family rental platform from 0 to $1 billion in under 12 months with 3 to 4 individuals. And so I pitched him on this idea, and thank God he didn't call me crazy, because here we are today. And so now people can invest in single family rental assets for as low as $250. I caveat that average investment is closer to the 10K mark. And when they do that, they receive dividends on a monthly basis, appreciation in real time, and tax benefits at year end. We joke that obviously the IRS wrote the tax code to incentivize two things: procreation and home ownership. Well, we can't help you with the first one. We sure as hell can help you with that second one. And so that's kind of high level on what Mogul is.
Amazing. Yeah, I think it's really exciting. Real estate is often, seen as slow, complex, and exclusive. Why is blockchain the right infrastructure for fixing that? And also, why now?
Yeah, so as to the answer to the first part of the question about why blockchain, I mean, blockchain was built for real estate. If you look back at even the Bitcoin white paper in 2008, it referenced the paper by Nick Szabo in 1998. And in 1998, he basically came up with this idea that in concept was almost the exact same thing as blockchain, where you and I could send our deed of a property over lines of code on the internet and have it cryptographically encrypted. And basically, he couldn't solve for a third-party bad actor problem. So fast forward, obviously, to 2008, and you've got the decentralized consensus mechanism. And yet, here we are today, and there really isn't a blockchain meets real estate world, even though it's based on real estate. And so blockchain can solve anything as it relates to the fraudulent transactions, anything as it relates to title insurance. That 8 to 10% in closing costs that occur on the real estate could go down to 0% overnight with smart contracts. In addition to that, anything that happens in terms of the transaction itself, it could be completely liquid. So it wouldn't have to be a month to 45 days closing period. It could be a 7 to 10 day one, or even an instant one. And so really that is why blockchain and real estate. However, there is a problem that lies when you connect real world assets with blockchain, and that is the Oracle problem. So that's what we're looking to solve. Is the Oracle problem is obviously connecting and creating the data that basically communicates between the smart contracts and the real world asset in a verifiable format. And so we're looking to solve that ultimately and become the all-encompassing blockchain platform for real estate. However, we're using fractional investing as a means to scale in a capital efficient manner on the unit side. As for why now, real estate is obviously a massive wealth generator. It's the world's largest wealth generator. People, when they leap different socioeconomic classes, it's traditionally been from real estate returns. As the market has hit turbulence even higher than over the past few years, and people are looking for stability with a greater means to achieve wealth, real estate is that means to achieve wealth in a stable way through any sort of turmoil or turbulence in the meantime. And so that's why now is we can get outsized returns now by deploying. And so this first vintage of assets over the next year, 2 years is going to be tremendous when compared against the returns of even the S&P 500 or some other different asset classes.
Yeah, absolutely. What more can you tell us about how blockchain is used inside Mogul, from minting tokenized properties to wallet infrastructure and investment security?
Yeah, of course. So the way it works today is someone could come to our site and they wouldn't even know that we're on blockchain. And that's the goal. Is how do you onboard a billion users to Web3? Well, you hide the fact that it's Web3 in the background and you use conventional methods on the interface. And so today, it's all of our back office, and we use that as a means for a more efficient back office that we pass along a lower cost to our end investors, but they don't have to necessarily know blockchain or crypto to invest in the real estate. So the way that it works today is each individual property is a PropCo LLC attributed to it. And then each PropCo LLC has an ERC1155 token that has been minted for it. So an NFT standard like token that's been minted for it on Avalanche that represents ownership in the LLC. So represents ownership in the underlying asset. Now, when you purchase it, we use conventional rails, so your ACH, to basically onboard you onto Web3. And so that's kind of the on-ramp, so to speak. However, now we're actually accepting USDT on Avalanche as well, to the extent that people want to stay on blockchain. And obviously it makes international payments a lot better. And so that's the way that it works now. Obviously, eventually our goal is to bring all of real estate on chain, but you've got to start with the equity side of the cap stack first before you start moving into different avenues.
Yeah. As you mentioned there, you've made that exciting partnership with Avalanche. What made them specifically the right partner, and how, as well as that infrastructure, helping you scale?
Yeah, so I mean, when you look at where real world assets are going, and when you look at the current market trends, you've got a lot of major financial institutions partnering with Avalanche just due to their levels of security, just due to the obviously lower transaction fees. All these different components factor into why major financial institutions are partnering up with Avalanche. And so we see the writing on the wall that Avalanche will become the real world asset play of choice. Now, whether it hits other different realms, it definitively in our mind will be a major real world asset play. And so we wanted to be where all the major institutions are. And luckily, they, from an early stage, saw what we were doing and saw how it is that we could be disruptive. And they were some of our earliest backers. 2 years ago, they started backing us. And so we've been growing out with them ever since. We see the writing on the wall. We see that it's going to be a tremendous resource on the go forward. Now, as for how they're partnering up with us, they're basically giving access to all of their different members, all these different people that are using AVAX can now come to our platform and diversify into real estate by literally just paying via USDT. And so that's the way that it's working today.
Amazing. Getting into the nuts and bolts of some of the product features and, community, you're about to launch a new feature called MogulCubs. Can you explain what it is and also, how it changed the experience as well for users?
Yeah, so one of the major components that we had heard from all of our different users, and keep in mind, our user feedback is how our platform grows. Every feature on our platform has been the result, if not directly asked for, tangentially asked for, and it was the solution that was asked for by our users. And so one of the major things was this platform's great. I love investing in the properties. However, I would love to invest alongside my community. I would love to invest alongside my friends in the properties. I'd love to be able to communicate with them about real estate on your platform. And so when we conceptualize this MogulCubs experience, it's a community-led investment. While you're investing still in the properties that we have on the platform, you're doing so in a way that you can communicate with other investors, you can ask questions, you can get more involved. And so it no longer is that barrier to enter of knowledge. You can come on our website and learn a tremendous amount from the community by just posing questions. We have very active community members even already in the platform. And so when you do so, there's also an extra incentive or reward for investing while being a part of a club and inviting other people. Basically, it's an incentive reward that when people invest, they're basically distributed to members of the club pro rata to the amount they've invested. It amounts to roughly 2% of every dollar invested gets distributed back to the club members. And so it's just an extra incentive to share the club and continue to help us grow out Mogul alongside one another. And this is obviously in addition to the market beating returns of the 18.8%.
Yeah. So is the idea then to bring a more collaborative social decision making into real estate investing?
Exactly right. Yeah, I mean, the biggest question that I had when I was starting out with real estate investing was, what's the next step? Where do I go from here? I decided I wanted to invest in real estate, but what do you even tackle next? What's the next question that you need to ask? Is it what market should I target? What even am I looking at within a market? If I'm looking at an asset, what type of asset class? And so all these different questions, it's really just you start to pull on the thread and it becomes a really timely ordeal where you're going deep into the weeds on. I mean, I was fortunate enough, I got my realtor's license during my time at GS. I got it for the real estate I was looking to buy out in Dallas. And so luckily it was a natural course of action, did 180 hours of coursework, got deep in the contract law, got deep in the actual property law, all these different components. And so that naturally led me to learn a little bit more. But just when I was starting out, I had no idea where to go. And so that's where this comes in, is now you can understand where to go because other people are there first and can help you generate that understanding of real estate. And if you're someone that learns like myself from experience, you can invest in the properties, see how they're returning, why they're returning. We give very detailed overviews of why they're returning, what they're returning, the line items of it, the underwritings we have. We actually have a calculator that you can go into and see line item by line item, the underwriting we have, and put in your own assumptions. And so it's a very educational experience. Now, if you're someone that's like, I just want to invest and be as hands off as possible, that's also allowed on our platform. But at the same time, it really is that community by which people can grow alongside us and continue to grow their wealth.
Yeah, 100%. And how do you see that shaping like user engagement and deal flow?
So, I mean, we've already seen it. We actually put out the feature last week. And so
Nice.
when that happened, we were amazed at the results. A lot of people started coming on the platform, loving the club feature, started asking us questions that it adds another layer of communication, not only with ourselves, but other people. And so you can get those answers quicker. And so
Yeah.
traditionally, it's definitely a lot more on the educational side than it is on the posting memes side. That's not to say that people won't eventually post memes, but right now it's more focused on, oh, what is a pad split? How do you invest in pad splits? Why is Mogul choosing pad splits? What is this decision that was made around this property? How did we look at it? How did you even look to invest in the property? So all these things are questions that we may or may not have answered thousands upon thousands of times again, and we might have it in our help center. But if you want it even more immediate, you can communicate with other community members that may have the same question. And maybe it is that we obviously communicated a little bit better next time, but it definitely helps with the user engagement on platform. It helps with them understanding real estate. And really, it just benefits everyone when that continues to grow out.
Yeah, for sure. Real estate is, a heavily regulated asset class, and users are often new to crypto. So how do you, balance UX simplicity with blockchain native security?
Yeah, of course. So it's funny. It's when you think about this question, it's not so much about thinking about how do you balance the two separately. It's almost how do you make it so that no one knows what's under the hood.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times people ask us, why don't you talk about the blockchain component more? Really comes down to we use AWS too as a more efficient back office. That doesn't mean we're saying we're an AWS platform, but at the
Yeah.
same time, people tend to use blockchain and crypto and conflate the two in order to push a crypto token or a meme coin or whatever it might be, or push a hype cycle around it. And
Yeah.
so what we're using it in, it's more extracted out in the back layer. We use obviously a custodial wallet provider that comes in behind the scenes. And so that way in real time, the tokens are being monitored and held within a wallet that's completely secure. And so really it is just a way to be a little bit more secure on the membership, making sure on a minute by minute basis you're recording it. Now, day one, it helps us only with cost efficiencies, and users may or may not see that. Obviously, the higher returns hopefully is a result of some of the cost efficiencies and savings there. But day two, we're going to implement a tremendous amount of other avenues and other products that will implement the blockchain component more. And I do think for international users, especially, the most efficient way to pay is going to be through USDT. I mean, it's obviously cheaper
Yeah.
than anything else, and not to mention international wires is kind of a hassle.
Yeah. No, definitely is. I've had plenty of experience of that. So looking ahead then, what's next on your roadmap? Are there any, are there, new jurisdictions, property types, or, tech features that you're aiming to add?
Yeah, so I mean, right now we've been launching like crazy and continuing to ship out new features and product, and I do think that they'll continue to grow, and we're going to continue to grow out the MogulCubs component, continue to iterate on that. As for the next major feature, I would say it's probably next year is our target behind a bigger launch around maybe like a secondary exchange, that type of target. But right now, our focus is on making the real estate the best it can possibly be, the individual experience the best it can possibly be, uh, a more tailored experience for the end individual, a better comprehensive platform. And we're continuing to iterate on the features. So it's hard to pinpoint one exact feature in the product roadmap that a user should be very excited for. But that's to say, we're constantly adding new things. I mean, we turned over the investment calculator and analysis tab in a week. We turned over a change in a portfolio update in a week. All these different things are things that we're constantly iterating upon to make it a better platform for end users.
Amazing. And what does success look like for tokenized real estate in, let's say, the next 3 to 5 years? What would it, and also what will it take to get there as well?
Yeah, I mean, 3 to 5 years, if you're looking at the way real estate moves, obviously it's taken 40 plus years to break down the Realtors Association and remove the monopoly that they have over everything. So real estate is a very slow moving asset class. In 3 to 5 years, I think just a lot more real estate is going to come online. Our platform is going to continue to grow out. Now, the question really is about in the next 10 years, what's going to happen with real estate? I think real estate is going to continue to get more and more transparent as people realize just how big of a monopoly the Realtors Association has. They control the data inflow, they control the data outflow, they control the commissions paid. They're the main gatekeeper overall. And so I do think that this is the first kind of chink in the armor, so to speak, before it starts to really crumble down. But I do think it's going to take years and years and years before we see a lot more. I think Zillow is starting to attack them, which is great. I'm all for that. And I think that some of the other major platforms are going to start to do so as well. But it really comes down to how much will the gatekeepers allow and how much of a fight do you have to put up in order to make sure that the gatekeepers do step aside and allow for this type of innovation.
Amazing. Lastly, one final question from me. As we were sort of talking at the start there, I recently launched and founded my own Web3 recruitment agency. As a founder yourself, what advice would you give to someone like myself or anyone else in this space as a new founder of any business?
In what advice would I give to another founder?
Yeah, just in general, as a founder yourself.
Uh, it's nothing like the movies. It's hard as hell. Yeah, I mean, I think you have all these rosy pictures about what happens. You have all these rosy ideas about what happens, but at the end of the day, this is much harder than our 100-hour work weeks at GS. This is much harder than anything that we've ever had to undertake. It's a much more stressful environment. I can see bags under my eyes even as I'm speaking right now that weren't there a few years ago. And I think it's just if you're not willing to basically go down to the deepest level, then maybe don't do it. If you're not as passionate as you could possibly be, it's kind of like giving birth to a child. Don't do
Yeah.
it unless you're 100% sure that you want to do it. And then if you want to do it, devote everything you have to it, because I guarantee you within that first 2 to 3 years, nothing else will be a priority except that business that you're continuing to grow out. And so I think ask as many people as possible for advice, ask as many people as possible, because I do think there are a million mistakes that we made early on. And granted, if you don't learn from those mistakes, that's horrendous. And you've got to continue learning from those mistakes, and you've got to fail as fast as humanly possible to learn from those mistakes. But you've also got to have the measurement in place to understand what those mistakes were that you failed for and why it failed. Launch fast, fail fast, succeed faster, and actually learn from those. Those are kind of our main couple pieces of advice. And also, it's hard as hell. Outside of that, I don't think there's a whole lot. Build something. Like, there's also always, you look at the different VCs out there with the different mantras that they have, and it's always some extracted view about, oh, build a product that people love. It's like, yeah, that's also great, but also just make sure that you're failing incredibly fast and making sure that you're learning from it faster than that.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the main piece of advice.
No, I love that. And, it rings so true. Alex, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate your time and, showing us how, Mogul is combining blockchain transparency, strong infrastructure, and a community driven investing as well to, reshape real estate. So really appreciate that. For those wanting to learn more, you can go and visit their website, www.mogul.club, and follow them on social media. As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Web3 Insights on YouTube and Spotify for the latest conversations with minds building the future of Web3. Thank you for tuning in. And Alex, thank you once again. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate you.